What happens when you're judged by the color of your skin and the clothes on your back? For one gate agent, it was a normal, stressful day. She saw a black woman in a hoodie and decided she didn't belong. She called security. She wanted to make an example. But what that agent didn't know was that she wasn't just talking to a passenger. She was threatening the one woman who held her entire airline's fate in her hands. This isn't just a story about bias. This is a story about what happens when you pick on the wrong person, and the karma that follows is swift, brutal, and public. The air in Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, ATL, wasn't just air. It was a physical weight. It smelled of Cinnabon, jet fuel, and the low-tide tang of human anxiety. For Dr. Daisy Moore, it was the final hurdle in a 36-hour journey that had started in a muddy field outside Lyon, France. She was exhausted, not just Mr. Nap tired, but a deep cellular exhaustion that made her bones feel like porous stone. Her eyes, usually sharp and analytical, felt like they were coated in fine grit. For the last 72 hours, she had been Dr. Moore, Senior Air Safety Investigator for the NTSB, on special assignment with the FAA's Joint Task Force. She had walked a debris field, interviewed grieving pilots, and stared into the maw of a mangled Airbus engine, her mind cataloguing every shear, every fracture, every burn pattern. But now, she just wanted to be Daisy. She was dressed for anonymity, for survival. Black yoga pants, comfortable sneakers, and a well-worn deep crimson hoodie with Howard University printed across the chest in faded white letters. Her hair, a cascade of intricate braids, was pulled back into a simple, low bun. She was just another weary traveler, one of millions, navigating the B concourse. Her flight, Global Airways 1281 to Chicago O'Hare, was boarding at Gate B32. It was predictably a circus. The gate agent, a woman whose name tag read Rachel Miller, was a portrait of frayed nerves. She had a severe blonde bob that looked like it could cut glass, and her voice, amplified by the PA system, was a sharp, nasal weapon. "This is a full flight, people. A very full flight. We do not have room for your giant suitcases. If it does not fit in the sizer, it must be gate-checked. I am not going to argue with you." Daisy sighed, leaning against a pillar. She checked her phone. A text from her 8-year-old daughter, Maya. "Are you almost here, Mummy?" Daisy smiled, the first genuine expression she'd managed all day. She typed back, "Just about to get on my last plane, sweetie. I'll be home in time to tuck you in. I promise." She loved her job. She believed in it. She believed that every person who stepped onto a metal tube and hurtled through the sky at 500 miles per hour deserved to arrive safely. Her work made that happen. But God, the travel was brutal. The days spent piecing together tragedy. The nights spent in sterile hotel rooms. "We are now boarding Zone 3. Zone 3 only." Rachel Miller's voice sliced through the din. That was her. Daisy pushed off the pillar, her knees cracking in protest. She had a standard rollerboard carry-on, the same one she'd taken to 5 continents, and a heavy leather satchel, her personal item, slung over her shoulder. The satchel contained her government-issued laptop, her logbooks, and the tools of her trade. She got in line, just another face in the shuffling, anonymous crowd. She was behind a businessman, Mr. Henderson, who was loudly complaining into his AirPods about a merger, and in front of a young couple taking selfies. She just wanted to get to 24B, a middle seat she had dreaded for 11 hours. She wanted to put in her noise-cancelling headphones, listen to a structural engineering podcast, and disappear until the wheels touched down in Chicago. She was 5 people from the podium. 4. 3. Rachel Miller was scanning passes with a frantic, jerky motion. Beep, beep, Beep. She wasn't looking at faces, just at screens and bags. She stopped a man. "Sir, that is not a carry-on. That is a small refrigerator. Step aside, check it." The man sputtered, but Rachel had already moved on. "Next!" Daisy stepped forward. She pulled up the QR code on her phone, holding it out to the scanner. Rachel didn't scan it. Her eyes flicked from Daisy's phone to her face, to the Howard hoodie, and then down to her carry-on. Her lips pursed into a thin, judgmental line. "Zone 3, ma'am," Rachel said, her voice dripping with artificial patience. "Yes, I know," Daisy said, her voice a low, tired rasp. "My pass says Zone 3. "This is the priority economy boarding," Rachel clarified, as if speaking to a child. "Are you sure you're in the right group? We'll call for basic economy and general boarding last." A flicker of heat went up Daisy's spine, cutting through the fatigue. It was the calculus, as she and her black friends called it. The internal, instantaneous mathematics of navigating bias. Stay calm. Do not raise your voice. Do not give her the angry black woman she's looking for. Be polite. Be firm. "But God, I am so tired." "Ma'am," Daisy said, keeping her voice perfectly level. "My pass is for Zone 3. If you just scan it, you'll see." Rachel let out an exaggerated sigh, loud enough for the people behind Daisy to hear. She scanned the phone. Beep. The screen flashed green. More, Daisy. Seat 24B, Zone 3. A flash of annoyance crossed Rachel's face. She had been wrong, and she hated it. But she wasn't done. Her eyes zeroed in on Daisy's black rollerboard. "Your bag looks too large," she snapped. "This is a full flight. You'll have to check it." "It's a standard issue carry-on," Daisy replied, still calm, though the calculus was getting harder. "I fly with it weekly. It fits." "It looks too large to me," Rachel retorted, her voice rising. "You need to put it in the sizer. Over there." The line behind Daisy was groaning. Mr. Henderson, in front of her, had turned around. "Jesus Christ, lady, just check the damn bag. You're holding everyone up." Daisy ignored him. She looked at Rachel. "Fine." She wheeled her bag 3 feet to the metal sizer, lifted it, her shoulders screaming from the weight of her laptop bag, and dropped it in. It slid in perfectly, with an inch to spare. She didn't look at Rachel. She simply pulled it out and wheeled it back to the podium. "It fits. Now, may I please board?" This was the moment the wire tripped. Rachel Miller, stressed, overworked, and now publicly proven wrong by a woman she had prejudged, lost control. Her face flushed a deep, blotchy red. "Ma'am, I do not appreciate your tone," Rachel hissed. "You are being argumentative and disruptive. I'm going to have to ask you to step aside. We can rebook you on a later flight." The entire gate area, which had been a dull roar, suddenly quieted. The passengers in line froze. Daisy was stunned. "Rebook me? For what? For proving my bag fits?" "For your attitude." Rachel pointed a finger at her. "You are causing a disturbance. You're a security risk. Step aside now, or I will be forced to call security." The calculus shattered. The exhaustion evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp spike of adrenaline. The field in Lyon, the mangled metal, the grieving families, it all seemed a world away. Now there was only this: Gate B32, a woman named Rachel, and a line she would not cross. "I am not stepping aside," Daisy said. Her voice didn't rise, but it changed. The tiredness was gone. It was now the voice she used in deposition, the voice that commanded attention from cocky airline CEOs and high-paid lawyers. "I am a ticketed passenger in the correct zone with a regulation-sized bag. I have done nothing wrong. You are discriminating against me." "Discriminating?" Rachel shrieked, recoiling as if struck. "How dare you? I am not. You're unruly. You're belligerent." A young woman in the line, Sarah, her hand shaking, lifted her iPhone. The red record light was on. Rachel saw it, and it pushed her over the edge. "That's it!" she yelled. She grabbed the red phone by the podium. "I need airport security at Gate B32 immediately. I have a passenger, an unruly passenger, who is refusing to comply with crew member instructions and causing a disturbance." She slammed the phone down, a look of grim triumph on her face. "You've done it now. You're going to be arrested." Daisy Moore stood perfectly still. She closed her eyes for a single second. She thought of her daughter, Maya, waiting for her. She thought of the promise she'd made. She opened her eyes and looked directly at Rachel Miller. "Call them," she said. Time in an airport terminal is elastic. The wait for a connecting flight can feel like an eternity, but the escalation of a conflict happens in a terrifying, compressed instant. It had been less than 90 seconds since Daisy had stepped up to the podium. Now, she was a spectacle. The line hadn't just stopped, it had dissolved, passengers forming a morbid semicircle around the gate, phones held high. The murmuring was a low, ugly buzz. "What's her problem?" "Just check the bag, you know. That agent is always so rude." "Oh my God, she's calling the cops." She pulled the discrimination card. Classic. Daisy stood alone in the small clearing, her 2 bags at her feet. She could feel the stares like insects crawling on her skin. She felt the hot shame, the deep, burning humiliation that came from being singled out, from being othered in public. She was Dr. Daisy Moore, one of the most respected investigators in her field. She briefed Congress. She taught PhD-level courses in metallurgical failure. And here, she was just a disruptive black woman in a hoodie. Rachel Miller stood with her arms crossed, projecting an air of indignant authority. She was tapping her foot, looking down the concourse toward the main atrium, as if waiting for a cavalry charge. "You should have just listened, ma'am," she said, loud enough for the crowd. "We have rules for a reason, for the safety and comfort of all our passengers." Daisy didn't reply. She ran her thumb along the leather strap of her satchel. She was calculating again, but not the calculus of composure. This was risk assessment. "What is the protocol? Airport security will arrive. They will be on the agent's side by default. They will ask me to step aside. If I refuse, they will detain me. I will miss my flight. Maya will be waiting. I will have to make the call to my supervisor. It will be a thing." This entire situation was a catastrophic failure of procedure, and it was all because this woman didn't like her sweatshirt. 2 minutes later, they arrived. Not just one, but 2. One was a younger man, Officer Davis, his hand already resting on his taser, his eyes wide and eager. The other was older, thicker, with a graying mustache and a name tag that read Officer Bryant. He looked as tired as Daisy felt. He was the one who spoke. "All right, folks, what's the—" he started, his voice a gravelly monotone. Then he saw the crowd and his posture stiffened. "Ma'am, what's the situation?" he asked Rachel. "Officer, thank God," Rachel gushed, her voice shifting from drill sergeant to damsel in distress. "This passenger," she pointed directly at Daisy, refused to follow instructions. She wouldn't check her oversized bag. She became belligerent. She started yelling. "I did not," Daisy said, her voice cutting through Rachel's performance. "See!" Rachel shrieked. "She's threatening me. She's holding up the entire flight. I asked her to step aside so we could continue boarding, and she refused. She's a threat. I want her removed." Officer Bryant looked at Daisy. He sized her up, just as Rachel had. The hoodie, the yoga pants, the look of defiance in her eyes. He saw a problem he had to solve, and the path of least resistance was clear. "Ma'am," he said, his voice taking on the official, non-negotiable tone of law enforcement. "I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. Please pick up your bags and step away from the gate." "Officer, I am not," Daisy started. "Ma'am, this is not a request," Bryant interrupted, stepping closer. His partner, Davis, mirrored him, flanking her on the right. She was now boxed in. "We can do this politely, or we can do this with force. Your choice. But you are leaving the gate. The agent has the right to deny you boarding." The crowd buzzed. The young woman, Sarah, was still filming, her lens zoomed in tight on Daisy's face. Daisy looked at Bryant. She saw a man on autopilot, a man following a script written by Rachel Miller. "Officer," Daisy said, her voice now devoid of all emotion. "This gate agent is lying. She profiled me the second I walked up. My bag fits the sizer, which I demonstrated. I did not raise my voice. I am not a threat. I am a passenger trying to go home." "That's what they all say," Officer Davis muttered, impatient. "Everyone thinks their bag fits," Bryant sighed. "Ma'am, I've heard enough. You're causing a public disturbance. Let's go." He reached forward, his hand open, ready to grab her arm. "No," Daisy said. Bryant froze. "No?" "No," Daisy repeated. She did not move. She did not flinch. "You are not going to touch me. You are not going to detain me. And you are certainly not going to prevent me from boarding this flight. Madame, you are 1 second away from being arrested for trespassing and interfering with—" "Interfering?" Daisy's voice was ice. She slowly, deliberately, swung her heavy leather satchel from her shoulder to the floor. The crowd went utterly silent. Even Rachel Miller looked suddenly afraid. "You want to talk about interfering, officer?" Daisy said, her hands going to the zipper of the satchel. "Let's talk about interfering." She unzipped the main compartment. She reached past her laptop, past her noise-cancelling headphones, and deep into a specialized, reinforced pocket. Her fingers found the familiar cold metal and worn leather. She pulled it out. It was a black, trifold leather wallet. It looked like any other. Rachel Miller actually snorted. "Your wallet? Are you trying to bribe me now? That's it, officer. Arrest her." Daisy ignored her. She looked Officer Bryant square in the eye. Her hand, which had been so steady as it held a micrometer to a fractured turbine blade, was just as steady now. She flipped the wallet open. The sound it made, a soft thwack of leather, was the only sound in the B concourse. Inside, nestled in a custom-cut recess, was a gleaming gold badge. It wasn't a police badge. It was an eagle, wings spread wide, clutching a shield, with the words Federal Aviation Administration in a bold blue enamel ring. Beside it, on the other fold, was her laminated credential, her photograph staring back with a serious, professional gaze, and the words that changed everything. Dr. Daisy M., Moore Senior Air Safety Investigator, National Transportation Safety Board, U.S. Depth of Transportation. The terminal didn't just get quiet, it experienced a total decompression. The silence was so sudden and so profound that the beep of a distant airport cart sounded like a gunshot. Officer Bryant, who had been reaching for her arm, froze. His hand hung in the air, motionless. His eyes, which had been tired and dismissive, were now wide, locked on the badge. He didn't just recognize the authority, he recognized the level of authority. This wasn't a mall cop. This wasn't even a local detective. This was the feds, the aviation feds, in an airport. Officer Davis's jaw literally dropped open. He took an involuntary step back. The crowd of passengers, who had been a jury of mockers, was now a silent chorus of shock. The woman filming, Sarah, nearly dropped her phone. The businessman, Mr. Henderson, who had told her to check her damn bag, looked like he was going to be sick. Daisy's gaze never left Officer Bryant. "Officer," she said, her voice echoing in the new, terrifying silence. "My name is Dr. Daisy Moore. I am a senior investigator for the NTSB, currently on assignment for the FAA Joint Task Force on Aviation Safety." She let the words hang. She let him process. "I am returning from an 18-hour shift at an active investigation site. I am traveling on official government business, and under Title 49 of the United States Code, my credentials grant me priority, must-ride access to any U.S. air carrier in the performance of my duties, regardless of zone, manifest, or a gate agent's feelings about my hoodie." She paused, then turned her head slowly, locking eyes with Rachel Miller. Rachel's face had gone from blotchy red to a pale, clammy, corpse-like white. Her mouth was opening and closing, but no sound was coming out. "You, Miss Miller," Daisy said, reading her name tag with deliberate precision, "did not just harass a passenger. You did not just violate your own airline's code of conduct. You have just actively attempted to detain and have called security on a federal officer in the midst of their official duty." She turned back to Bryant. "You, officer, were about to physically assault that same federal officer, all of which," she nodded to the dozens of phones still pointing at her, "is being recorded. So I am going to ask you, one more time, to please step aside. I have a plane to catch." Officer Bryant's transformation was instantaneous. The bored, sluggish cop was gone, replaced by a man staring down the barrel of a career-ending lawsuit. Dr. Moore," he stammered, raising his hands in a gesture of placation. "My apologies. We had no idea. The call came in as an unruly—" "The call," Daisy said, cutting him off, "was a fabrication." She snapped the badge wallet shut, another thwack that echoed in the silence, and slid it back into her satchel. The spell was broken, but the reality was just setting in. And that's when the jet bridge door opened. The man who emerged from the jet bridge was not just another airline employee. He was the one person in this entire scenario, aside from Daisy, who held actual, indisputable power over the aircraft. Captain Mark Donovan was in his late 50s, with a shock of silver hair and a crisp white uniform that commanded respect. He had the calm, steady demeanor of a man who had seen 30,000 flight hours, but right now his face was a mask of confusion and annoyance. "What in God's name is the hold-up out here, Rachel?" he boomed, his captain's voice accustomed to being obeyed. "We are 5 minutes from losing our departure slot. We've got a plane load of people in here." His voice trailed off as he took in the scene. He saw his gate agent, pale as a ghost, 2 airport security officers looking like they'd just seen one, and a semicircle of passengers filming the entire thing. And in the middle of it all, a black woman in a Howard hoodie who was zipping up her leather satchel. Donovan's eyes scanned the scene. And then he saw her. His blood ran cold. It wasn't just recognition, it was a jolt of pure, professional terror. He didn't just see a passenger. He didn't even just see a federal agent. He saw the woman he had spent 4 agonizing hours with in a conference room in Paris just 3 days prior. "Dr. Moore," he breathed, the name coming out as a horrified whisper. Daisy looked up. Her cold, professional mask softened for just a split second, replaced by her bone-deep weariness. "Captain Donovan," she acknowledged with a simple, tired nod. Rachel Miller, seeing the captain, seemed to find her voice again, though it was a moory, desperate squeak. "Captain, this woman, she was being unruly. I had to call." "Shut up, Rachel," Donovan snapped. His voice was quiet, but it carried a finality that silenced her more effectively than Daisy's badge. He looked at Daisy, then at the security officers, then at the crying baby in the crowd, and he understood instantly that a disaster had occurred. A disaster that had nothing to do with an airplane. "Dr. Moore," he said, stepping forward, his entire demeanor changing. He was no longer an annoyed pilot. He was a diplomat in a war zone. Are you on this flight?" "I'm supposed to be, Captain," Daisy said. "Seat 24B. Your gate agent, Ms. Miller, had an issue with my carry-on. Then my tone. Then my existence. She decided I was a security threat and called these officers to have me arrested." Captain Donovan visibly winced, as if he'd been struck. He turned his head and stared at Rachel Miller. It was not a look of anger. It was a look of utter, profound disbelief. "Rachel," he said, his voice dangerously low, "do you have any idea at all, who this is?" Rachel just shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. She's FAA. She's not just FAA," Donovan practically yelled, his composure finally cracking. He gestured at Daisy with a shaking hand. "This is Dr. Daisy Moore. She is the NTSB's lead investigator for Flight 9-way Tater." If the badge had silenced the terminal, this announcement detonated a bomb. Flight 918. Every single person in that terminal knew the call sign. Every employee of Global Airways had it burned into their memory. 3 weeks ago, a Global Airways 787, Flight 918, from London to Dallas, had suffered a catastrophic landing gear failure. The plane had skidded off the runway, the wing had caught fire, and only a miracle of piloting, and luck, had prevented it from being the worst U.S. air disaster in a decade. The investigation was front-page news. The airline's stock had plummeted. The CIO was scheduled to testify before Congress in 1 week, and Rachel Miller had just tried to have the person leading that investigation arrested for a hoodie. "Oh, my God," whispered the woman, Sarah, who was still filming. Officer Bryant looked like he was going to faint. He had gone from detaining a disruptive passenger to assaulting the key figure in a multi-billion-dollar federal investigation. Rachel Miller made a small, choking sound and put her hand to her mouth. She finally understood. She hadn't just made a mistake. She had ended her career. She had, quite possibly, just cost her airline its reputation. "Captain," Daisy said, her voice pulling him back. "I don't need this to be a scene. I just need to get home to my daughter." Donovan snapped back into action. "Yes, of course. Dr. Moore, please." He gestured to the jet bridge. "Board at your convenience. My sincerest apologies. I can't begin to—" "Just get her on the plane, Mark," Daisy said, using his first name, a sign of their shared, grim professional world. "Let me move you to first class," he offered, desperate. "It's the least I can do." Daisy shook her head. "No, thank you, Captain. But no, I'll take my assigned seat. I don't want special treatment. I just want to be treated like a human being." She slung her heavy satchel over one shoulder and grabbed the handle of her rollerboard with the other. She looked at Officer Bryant. "We're done here, officer. I suggest you go back to your patrol." Bryant and Davis all but tripped over themselves to back away. "Yes, ma'am. Dr. Moore, absolutely. Our apologies." They practically fled down the concourse. Daisy then looked at Rachel Miller one last time. The woman was leaning against the podium, weeping openly, her face buried in her hands. Daisy felt a brief, tiny pang of, not pity, but profound sadness. It was all such a waste. Then she turned and walked toward the jet bridge. The crowd of passengers parted for her like the Red Sea. The silence was absolute, broken only by the click, click, click of her carry-on's wheels on the tile floor. This was not the walk of triumph. It was the walk of humiliation. Every eye was on her, not with mockery anymore, but with a different, invasive mix of awe, fear, and pity. She hated it. She stepped into the jet bridge, and the door to the terminal clicked shut behind her, sealing her away from the chaos she had left in her wake. Boarding a plane, after being the center of a public confrontation, is its own special kind of hell. Daisy walked down the narrow aisle of the 737, her shoulders hunched. The passengers who were already seated, those from Zone 1 and 2, had heard the commotion. They stared. The passengers who had been in line behind her filed in, giving her a wide berth, their faces a mixture of "don't make eye contact" and "is that her?" She reached her row. 24. A, B, C. Mr. Henderson, the businessman who had yelled at her to check her bag, was in 24A, the window seat. He was already seated, his jacket neatly folded. When he saw her, his face, which had been ruddy and confident, went pale. He shrank against the fuselage, pulling his legs in so tight he was nearly in a fetal position. He stared intently at the back of the seat in front of him, his entire body screaming, "I am not here. Please do not speak to me." Daisy said nothing. She lifted her regulation-sized carry-on into the overhead bin, slid her heavy satchel under the seat in front of her, and buckled herself into 24B, the middle seat. She was trapped between a man terrified of her and a stranger in the aisle seat who looked like he wanted an autograph. She just wanted to sleep. She pulled out her headphones, put them on, and closed her eyes, shutting out the world. Up in the front, in the galley, Captain Donovan was on the cockpit phone, speaking in a low, furious voice. "Yes, that's what I said. David, get down here now. I don't care if you're in a meeting. No, you don't understand." She called security on Dr. Daisy Moore. Yes, that Dr. Moore. The lead on 9018. I know. Just get here. And get Rachel Miller away from this gate. She is not to interact with another passenger. Do you understand me? He hung up and scrubbed his hands over his face. This was a 5-alarm fire. A gate agent, an employee of an airline under active investigation for safety lapses, had just attempted to have the chief investigator arrested on an unsubstantiated, biased claim. In front of 100 people with smartphones, this wasn't just bad PR. This was tampering. This was obstruction. This was, at the very least, the worst possible corporate culture optic he could imagine. As the last passengers boarded, a flight attendant named Maria, who had seen the whole thing from the galley, approached Daisy's row. She leaned in, careful not to disturb the other passengers. "Dr. Moore," she whispered. Daisy opened her eyes. "I'm Maria, the lead flight attendant. I just wanted to say, I saw what happened out there. I am so sorry. That was unacceptable." Daisy gave her a small, tight-lipped smile. "Thank you, Maria. It's been a long day. Can I get you anything?" Maria offered, her eyes full of genuine empathy. "A drink before takeoff? A meal from first class?" "It's on me." "Just a bottle of water, please, when you have a chance." "That's all," Daisy said. "Thank you." Maria nodded. "My sister flies for a regional. She's one of the few," she said, a quiet moment of solidarity passing between them. "I get it." She returned a moment later with a large bottle of water and a first-class amenity kit. Daisy took them with a grateful nod. The plane door closed. The engines spooled up. They were finally, mercifully, pushing back from the gate. Back in the terminal, the scene was one of controlled panic. David Chen, the gate's station manager, had sprinted from his office at the far end of the concourse. He found Rachel Miller, not weeping anymore, but sitting in a passenger chair, staring into the middle distance, shivering. "Rachel!" he hissed, grabbing her by the arm and pulling her into the now empty gateside office. My office. Now. He was already on his own phone. Jessica, it's David. We have a code red at B32. No, not a security breach. A personnel breach. A massive one. In his small glass-walled office, the reality began to crash down on Rachel Miller. I didn't know, David, she stammered as he paced in front of her like a caged tiger. She was dressed in a hoodie, and she was being so difficult. And the bag. She was in a hoodie, David roared, his voice cracking. A hoodie? That's your justification. We are in Atlanta. Half our passengers are in hoodies. But she was what, Rachel? Black. Rachel flinched. You wouldn't what? David slammed his hand on his desk. I've seen your passenger complaints, Rachel. This isn't the first time you've had a tone problem. But you had to pick her. He jabbed his finger at his computer screen. The video is already on Twitter. It's got 20,000 views in 10 minutes. Global Airways agent calls cops on black woman, who turns out to be FAA. That's the title. Rachel's face crumpled. 20,000. And Captain Donovan, David continued, his voice dropping to a sick whisper, just radioed me from the plane. He confirmed who she is. This isn't just some FAA paper pusher, Rachel. This is Dr. Daisy Moore, the lioness of the NTSB, the one who grounded the entire 737 MAX fleet in Europe before the FAA even acted, the woman who is personally handling the 9/18 investigation. He leaned in, his face inches from hers, the woman our CEO, James Harrison, is supposed to meet with next week to beg for a favorable report. And you tried to have her arrested for a carry-on bag. Rachel's breath hitched. What's going to happen? The phone on David's desk rang. The caller ID read, Riley Jessica, VP NAOPS. David looked at the phone, then at Rachel. He picked it up and put it on speaker. David, a sharp, ice-cold voice said, Don't talk, just listen. I've just gotten off the phone with legal. First, is Rachel Miller in the room with you? Yes, Jessica. She's right here, David said. Good. Ms. Miller, as of this second, you are suspended indefinitely, pending termination. Your access codes are being revoked as we speak. You will hand your badge and all airline property to Mr. Chen. He will escort you to the employee exit. You are not to speak to anyone. You are not to log in to any company system. And you are certainly not to make any public statements. Is that clear? But Rachel began. Is that clear, Ms. Miller? Jessica Riley's voice was a stiletto. Yes, Rachel whispered. Good. David, get her out of the terminal. Then, you are to pull the CCTV footage from B32. You are to get the names of the 2 security officers, and you are to start identifying every passenger who was in that line. Legal is drafting a statement, but the video is already at 500,000 views. This is, and I quote our CEO, an extinction-level event. Do not fail me. The line clicked dead. David Chen slowly sat down in his chair. He looked at Rachel Miller, whose life had just disintegrated in the span of an afternoon. There was no pity in his eyes. Give me your badge, Rachel, he said, and get out. The flight to Chicago was 2 hours and 15 minutes of turbulent air and even more turbulent thoughts. Daisy didn't sleep. She couldn't. The adrenaline from the confrontation had left her with a shaky, wired exhaustion. She stared at the seatback in front of her, the report on the Lion crash, the one she was supposed to be finalizing, feeling 1,000,000 miles away. Her mind replayed the scene at the gate, the smugness on Rachel's face, The hot, stinging shame, the way Officer Bryant had reached for her, the sudden, absolute silence. She had won, but it felt like a profound loss. She had to unbecome Dr. Moore, the federal authority, just to be treated like Daisy, the passenger, and she could only do that because she had a badge. What about the black woman in the hoodie who wasn't an NTSB investigator? The one who was just a teacher, or a nurse, or a student? What happened to her? She knew exactly what happened. She'd be in a holding cell at ATL right now, charged with trespassing. The man in 24A, Mr. Henderson, hadn't moved a muscle. He had not rung his call button, not gone to the bathroom. He sat compressed against the window, a monument to his own cringing embarrassment. When the wheels touched down at O'Hare with a firm, familiar bump, Daisy felt a wave of relief, so strong it almost made her dizzy. Home. Maya. The plane taxied to the gate. The ding of the seatbelt sign turning off was her signal. She was on her feet in an instant, grabbing her satchel. Mr. Henderson scrambled to get out of her way, muttering, "Sorry, excuse me, Ma'am," without ever meeting her eyes. Daisy was one of the first people off the plane. She walked up the jet bridge, her phone in her hand, ready to call her sister to pick her up. When she stepped into the terminal, she stopped. Waiting at the gate, not behind the security line, but at the actual plane door, was a woman in a sharp, dark blue Global Airways executive suit. She had a severe black haircut and a tablet clutched in her hand. She was flanked by 2 other employees, both looking grim. "Dr. Moore?" the woman said, her voice strained but professional. Daisy sighed. It wasn't over. "Yes." "Dr. Moore, my name is Angela Alvarez. I'm the Director of Customer Experience for the Chicago hub. On behalf of Global Airways, we cannot begin to express our apologies for what occurred in Atlanta." She was blocking Daisy's path. It was a polite ambush. "Ms. Alvarez," Daisy said, her voice flat. "I appreciate you meeting me, but it has been a very long 72 hours. I just want to go home to my child." Of course," Alvarez said, walking with her as Daisy started moving toward the concourse. "We have a private car waiting for you downstairs, Dr. Moore, to take you anywhere you need to go." "That's very kind, but my sister is already on her way." "Please," Alvarez insisted, almost jogging to keep up. "Allow us to do this. The company is taking this incident with the utmost seriousness. The employee involved has been suspended." "Fired, I hope you mean," Daisy said, not breaking her stride. Alvarez faltered. Yes. Her employment has been terminated, effective immediately." "Good." They reached the top of the escalator down to the baggage claim. Alvarez looked desperate. She was clearly under orders not to let Daisy leave without some kind of fix. "Dr. Moore, our Vice President of Operations, Ms. Riley, asked me to convey her personal apology. Our CEO, James Harrison, will be calling you personally in the morning. We want to make this right. We are prepared to offer you a full refund for this flight, and a gesture of our commitment to you, $10,000 in travel vouchers." Daisy stopped at the top of the escalator. She turned to face Ms. Alvarez. The terminal around them was busy, but here she was just a woman in a hoodie, being cornered by a corporate suit. "Ms. Alvarez," Daisy said, her voice low and dangerous. $10,000. Is that the going rate for public humiliation? For being profiled and nearly arrested in front of 100 people? Alvarez blanched. "No, of course not, Dr. Moore. It's just a gesture." "It's an insult," Daisy said. "What I experienced today was not a customer service issue. You can't fix this with travel vouchers. This was a bias issue, a systemic issue. Your employee felt empowered to treat me like a criminal because of what I look like. And the only reason I'm not in handcuffs is because of a badge she didn't know I had." She took a step closer. "You tell Ms. Riley, and you tell Mr. Harrison to save their apologies. I am not interested in their gestures. I am interested in their procedures. I am interested in their training protocols. And you should know, as the lead investigator on 9/18, that my report is not just about metallurgical failure, it is about corporate culture." Alvarez's face went white. She understood the threat. "And my experience today," Daisy continued, "will be included as a formal addendum to that report. An addendum on the hostile environment Global Airways maintains, not only for its passengers, but for federal investigators. You tell them that." Without waiting for a reply, Daisy turned and stepped onto the escalator. She rode it down, her back straight, not looking back. Ms. Alvarez was left standing at the top, her tablet hanging uselessly by her side, the gesture of $10,000 feeling like ash in her mouth. She had been sent to put out a fire, and Dr. Moore had just thrown a gallon of jet fuel on it. The next 24 hours were a masterclass in swift, brutal karma. The video shot by Sarah, the young passenger, was not just on Twitter. It was everywhere. By the time Daisy woke up the next morning, after finally hugging Maya so tight her daughter squeaked, it was the lead story on Good Morning America. The clip was devastating. It had captured everything. Rachel's smug condescension, Daisy's calm, firm replies, the moment the bag fit the sizer, Rachel's face twisting in anger, the shriek of "unruly," the arrival of the officers, and then the reveal. The news anchors, normally chipper, were somber. "A shocking video this morning out of Atlanta. A gate agent for Global Airways is seen calling security on a black woman, but the tables were turned in a way you have to see to believe." They played the clip of Captain Donovan's voice. "This is Dr. Daisy Moore. She is the NTSB's lead investigator for Flight 918. The karma wasn't just hitting Rachel Miller. It was a cascade, washing over everyone who had touched the incident. For Rachel Miller, she was, as promised, fired. But it was far worse than that. She was a pariah. The video was so clear, her actions so undeniably biased, that her face was now a national symbol of racism. Gate Agent Rachel became the top trend on Twitter. She received thousands of hateful messages. Her address was leaked. She had to deactivate all her social media. When she tried to apply for a job at another airline 2 weeks later, the HR manager at a rival carrier just looked at her resume. "Rachel Miller. Wait, are you that Rachel Miller?" The interview was over. She was blacklisted, not officially, but effectively. No airline, no airport, no customer-facing job would touch her. She had become toxic, a walking lawsuit. Her career in aviation, the one she had spent 15 years building, was over in 90 seconds. For Officers Bryant and Davis, the Atlanta Police Department's airport precinct was inundated with calls. The chief, under immense pressure, immediately opened an internal affairs investigation. Officer Bryant, a 20-year veteran, was placed on desk duty. His justification, "I was responding to a call from airline staff," held no water against the video. He had escalated, not de-escalated. He had threatened a federal officer. His union rep told him he was lucky he wasn't facing federal charges for obstruction. His career was hobbled, his path to a pension suddenly fraught. Officer Davis, the young, eager one, was fired. The department used him as a scapegoat, citing his aggressive posture and failure to assess the situation. For Mr. Henderson, seat 24A. The video was clear enough that his company's rival, who he had been loudly discussing on the phone, saw it. An anonymous email was sent to his CEO. Is this the kind of person who represents your brand, harassing other passengers? He was called into his own HR department. His merger was put on hold. He was forced to attend sensitivity training, his own incident now a permanent, humiliating mark on his performance review. For Global Airways, this was the extinction-level event the VP had predicted. By 10:02 a.m., GBLA stock had fallen 4.5%. That dip represented over $300 million in market capitalization, wiped out because of a hoodie. The story was no longer just about bias, it was about the 918 investigation. Does Global Airways intimidate investigators? One news Chiron asked. Has the 918 crash airline fostered a culture of hostility? Asked another. The congressional committee that was scheduled to hear the CEO's testimony postponed the meeting. They issued a new public summons, stating they would be adding questions regarding the incident in Atlanta and potential interference with a federal investigation to the agenda. The CEO, James Harrison, was in full-blown panic. He had been trying to save his airline, and one of his 18-an-hour employees had just handed Congress a knife. He had personally tried calling Dr. Moore 3 times that morning. Each time, it went straight to her government voicemail. His 10 a.m. board meeting was a bloodbath. How did this happen, James? One board member, a retired general, demanded. It was a rogue employee, General. A bad apple, Harrison tried. A bad apple? The general shot back. She called security, James, and security listened. They were going to arrest her. That's not a bad apple, that's a rotten orchard. You've lost control of your culture. Fix it. Fix it today. The airline was forced to issue a groveling, multi-page public apology. They announced a top-to-bottom review of all bias and de-escalation training, effective immediately. They publicly stated that they had terminated Rachel Miller, suspended the security officers, even though they didn't employ them, and were cooperating fully with Dr. Moore. The karma was hard, it was fast, and it was devastatingly complete. Daisy spent the morning in her quiet home office in a suburb of Chicago. She was wearing a different hoodie, this one from MIT, and sipping coffee. She was also, finally, writing her report on the Lion crash. Her phone buzzed. It was not a call, but a text from a number she didn't recognize. Dr. Moore, this is James Harrison, CEO of Global Airways. I have been trying to reach you. I cannot overstate my horror at what you endured. Please, I am asking for 5 minutes of your time. I am prepared to offer you, personally, first class for life on our airline as a token of our profound apology. Daisy read the text. First class for life. A bribe. A very expensive, very shiny bribe, designed to make her go away, to soften the addendum she was about to file. He thought he could buy her silence with legroom and warm nuts. She thought about Rachel Miller, a woman who was now, undoubtedly, one of the most hated people in America. She thought about the systemic rot that made a Rachel Miller possible, and she thought about Sisters of the Skies, an organization she mentored for, founded by black female pilots to support and build the next generation, an organization that was constantly, desperately fundraising. Daisy set her coffee down. She began to type. Her reply was sent 2 minutes later. Mr. Harrison, thank you for your text. I decline your offer of first class for life. As I told Ms. Alvarez last night, this was not a customer service failure. It cannot be fixed with a travel voucher, no matter how large. You are correct that you have a profound problem. You have a culture that enabled an employee to publicly humiliate a passenger based on race, and your security protocols nearly led to the arrest of a federal officer. Your offer is an attempt to buy my silence. I am not for sale. However, if you are truly horrified, and if Global Airways is truly committed to a new path, then you can demonstrate it. I request that you decline my perk and instead donate the equivalent monetary value of that offer. Let's be conservative and call it $1 million. Donate it to Sisters of the Skies, Inc., an organization dedicated to increasing the number of black female pilots in an industry that is less than 1% black women. That would not be a gesture. That would be a down payment on a solution. Do this, and I will note it in my report. Refuse, and I will note that as well. My report on 9/18, including the addendum on this incident, will be filed with the NTSB and Congress on Monday. Have a good day. Dr. Daisy M. Moore. In his New York office, James Harrison read the text. He read it 3 times. She had him. She had him completely. If he refused, she would crucify him in her report. His airline, already reeling, might not survive the congressional hearing. If he accepted, it would cost him $1 million, and it would be a public admission of guilt. He picked up his phone and called his CFO. Move $1 million from the emergency PR fund. No, just do it. And get me the contact info for an organization called Sisters of the Skies. 2 hours later, Sisters of the Skies announced on Twitter that they had received an unprecedented $1 million donation from Global Airways, made in honor of Dr. Daisy Moore. The news cycle pivoted. Hero FAA investigator turns down bribe, secures 1 medal for charity. Daisy Moore didn't just get karma, she weaponized it. She finished her Lion report. Then she opened a new file. Addendum 1281. Assessment of Global Airways, Corporate Culture and Personnel Interference. She looked at the picture of Maya on her desk, and she began to write. Her job was to make the skies safer. And today, she'd done her job, not just in the air, but on the ground, too. In the end, it wasn't just about a badge. It was about what that badge represented. Authority, truth, and the power to hold people accountable. Rachel Miller's snap judgment, born from stress and bias, didn't just ruin her own day. It cost her her career, cost 2 officers their standing, and cost Global Airways hundreds of millions of dollars. But Dr. Daisy Moore, she didn't just walk away. She took that moment of humiliation and turned it into a $1 million victory for an entire generation of future pilots. That is the definition of hard karma. What did you think of this story? Have you ever seen someone's power instantly turned back on them like this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. These real-life stories show that the world is smaller than we think, and you never know who you're talking to. If you enjoyed this story of justice and instant karma, please hit that like button. Share it with a friend. And be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Thanks for watching.